from the Pittsburgh Sportsline on this nice spring day in Pittsburgh. We hit 60 degrees, and I have to give you the weather report because the last time it was so frigid, we had a wind chill factor of 20 below. But on that, we're all in good spirits. We saw some sunshine today. We have a great show. We have so much sports to talk about, and then some controversy that come up about players and things in Miami and Florida. It's just a great sports day here. And we start out with what's on our mind. We have Chip the Prophet Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, Al Levine the Talking Machine, who's going to now kick it off with Big Mike Butera. What's on your mind, Mike? No, we're live. We're live, Mike.
I'm sorry, that was my deer in the headlights extraction that I took a sniff of before I came on the show tonight. I don't know, I apologize. As I always do, I want to say hello to Rick and Lorraine in Frankfurt, Big Jim in Lawrenceville, Little Nicky in Export, Rollo in Columbus, and Epstein's mother. This evening, or today, I mean, every day it's like, every day it's drugs upon drugs upon drugs, and today it's been
drugs
twofold. And I'm not going to do the Ray Jerry Lewis portion. I'll let you guys hit on that. But obviously the news that came out, and I know Chip's going to do a segment on this. So I want to just back off 2 days to an article on MLB.com that's about Frank Thomas, the former slugger of the Chicago White Sox and the Oakland A's. I want to read a quote because he believes he's a first ballot Hall of Fame inductee when he becomes eligible in 2014. And here's a quote. I think the three of us have resumes that should be there in the first ballot, meaning Glavine and Maddox, said Thomas, speaking to a group of reporters at the Palmer House Hilton during Saturday's Chicago White Sox Fest activities, including Maddox and Glavine, in his off-the-cuff 2014 Hall of Fame class. Quote, I spent my whole career working my butt off, and hopefully I will get what I deserve. Well, Frank, do you fellows remember when that inquiry was that included Sammy, I don't speak English, Sosa, and Raphael, I did not do it, Palmero, and Jose, who sat at this Canseco, and Mark McGuire down at that end because they weren't allowed to be friends, whatever. Well, Frank Thomas mailed it in. Frank Thomas mailed it in on a screen, if you guys remember. It was a video conference. So what does that mean? All those guys at that table, even though none of them or one of them or just some of them tested positive or admitted to, Frank was involved in that. And I do believe that there's going to be a Frank Thomas dilemma coming up this year in spite of what Frank himself thinks of himself. And I happen to be, I'm ambivalent about the guy. I don't care one thing or another about him, but I mean, this is endless upon endless jazz with all this steroidal PED jazz. It's just freaking me out anymore. I'm telling you, it's every day. Today, for example, today.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate what's on your mind.
Oh man, when I get that from you guys, I know I've arrived.
You've
no
arrived.
More Cub reporter here.
Mike. Outstanding.
I'm almost speechless. We're going to go, what's on our mind? I'm not. Smoking Jim Frazier, what's on your mind?
Thanks, Al Levine, the Talking Machine. I got the notes from General Studies major.
So, I feel honored.
so I tell you what, just real quick, I'm 10-0 in my playoff picks in the NFL playoffs, and I'm just going to go over them just very, very quickly, and then I'll give you my Super Bowl pick. I had, of course, Houston over Cincinnati. I had the Ravens over the Colts, the Packers over the Vikings, Seattle over the Redskins. And going into the second round of the playoffs, I had Baltimore over Denver. Of course, I had the Patriots over Houston. I had the 49ers over discount double choke. And I had Seattle over Atlanta. That's the only game that I lost. Atlanta lost. Atlanta beat Seattle, but Seattle won point spread against the spread, so I won that. Baltimore over the Patriots was an easy call. 49ers over Atlanta. And my Super Bowl pick will be the San Francisco 49ers 35, the Baltimore Ravens 14. San Francisco gets their 6th Lombardi. And that's what's on my mind.
Wow, that's fantastic. I just wish he would have told me about the lead cinch pipe bets during the playoffs. Because like I've told you before, I bet the house on when he does that some of the time. We'll leave that for later on the revisitation. Now we go to Chip the Prophet Hayner, who's back in predictions and getting them 100%. You're back, so what's on your mind,
What's
Chip?
on my mind? Well, my mind is, just to show you how well my predictions went out this year, I had Denver and Seattle in the Super Bowl.
An honest man.
What's on my mind? Big Mike Butera kind of skirted around the issue of, the performance-enhancing drugs just seem to keep on rearing their heads in professional sports. And and I honestly believe that the sports themselves, Major League Baseball, professional football, et al., don't really want to do anything about the drug problem and really take steps that are needed to kind of correct it. Because you've still got baseball players that are using performance-enhancing drugs, and there's an article coming out this weekend on Outside the Lines on ESPN. Describing how a wellness clinic in Florida is providing Alex Rodriguez, Melky Cabrera, Gio Gonzalez. These are all-stars from last year. Melky Cabrera, of course, got caught, and and because he got caught, he got a 50-game suspension and a $14.5 million reward. So there's no deterrent to using the drugs there because, hey, you know what? Oh, I get caught. Okay, I'll sit for 50 games, and and he's making out like a fat rat right now. And then, today at the Super Bowl, there's reports that, Ray Lewis may have taken something that included a banned substance, to help speed his return back to the game. And I brought this matter up, a couple of months ago here on the program because, you look at Terrell Suggs, he tears his Achilles tendon. Okay, anybody of us that's played sports and you've ripped up your Achilles tendon, it's a long time in healing that injury, and they expected him to be out for at least a year. All of a sudden, magically, I don't know what kind of pixie dust he was sprinkling. But he comes back way ahead of schedule and the normal for other people. And I said the same thing when people started talking about Ray Lewis said he's going to be back for the end of the season. I says, these are red flags to me. These are things that people should have, checked. And I do believe the problem is the system that they're using to detect the drugs. And also, I believe, in the NFL's case, it's the NFL Players Union and the players themselves that don't want to see the sport cleaned up, don't want the playing field to be even. Because, as part of the last collective bargaining agreement, HGH testing was supposed to be part of it. And the NFLPA has been dragging its heel not allowing that to happen. And I can't understand, if they won't allow the players to be tested for it, what are they hiding? I mean, if people weren't using it, you wouldn't have a problem. And the whole problem with their testing system is that too many people know what's happening when a test comes. And when you know when the test is going to be, it's real easy to skirt it and to pass it, okay? And you don't have to use masking agents. You could just, stop use for a short period of time. Stuff clears out of your system. What they really need to do is they have to come up with real punishments for players, like banning them from the sport. That would make an impact. And they've got to have true random testing, which means if you're in a contract to, say, the Pittsburgh Steelers, members of the Pittsburgh Steelers should be able to come to you 365 days a year, knock on your door and say, I've got, a specialist here, we're going to take a sample from you. And if they did that, it would clean up the sport and you would stop seeing so many, you look at the size of the athletes and all the injuries that are happening to players, and you want to try to make the sport safer for people. Well, if you've got guys that are running faster than humans normally should be, and they're blowing out tendons and ligaments and things that are just unnatural, and then, their lives are being shortened. And then, of course, they're coming back and blaming the NFL. You know what? They need to clean up the sports, all of them. They need to get rid of these things, and they need to put real testing in and real punishment. That's what's on my mind.
Oh, smokes.
Good job.
That was a load, Pally.
You know what? I can't wait to go to revisit that because you're preaching to the choir here. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Follow the money. I'll give you all my cliches. And I didn't bring my vitamin catalog because I still have what's on your mind with that vitamin catalog I brought at the level 20 lounge. But we'll go for there. But what I first want to do is I do a few infomercials, and I'll get this up in a minute, but I got to read it. Rayco War Promotions is proudly presenting Harlem Nights, and they also have Five Star Corporation promoting this. This is February 22nd, and I started to talk about it last night, but we got too carried away. It's every last Friday, starting on Friday, February 22nd, and he's bringing back classic R&B party nights. He's even going to have starring there the War Girls. So you might want to come out. Now, where's this at? Smoking Jim, 3 Lakes Golf Course, 6700 Salzburg Road. It's a nice facility, 8 o'clock till 1 a.m. They'll have vendors, 50-50 cash prize, $10 admission at the door, cash bar, cash kitchen. Wow. And then there's a few sponsors there. What? Rayco War Sanders, we're going to have you come on the show and tell us about this some more since it's happening. There's an invite to you. We'll have to get to you there. And then I don't have a flyer from, are you getting that, Chris? Or?
Yep. Keep going.
I'll just cover my.
Just keep talking.
Keep talking my face. We'll cover it up here. But anyhow.
Oh, hey, you got a nice picture of that.
No, that just block me out of there.
Picture of Rayco.
Devin and Aaron, thanks in the control room. This is live TV, folks. You can see I'm still an amateur here doing the best I can. And I want to promote Level 20 Lounge has a Super Bowl party, $20. You get a pitcher of Bud Light beer, and listen to this, you get double wings, a double order of wings. And they're promoting that, so go on out there to Level 20. We had a nice show there last night. We had some great guests. I want to give a shout out to Reggie Lowe. He come in on a special invite. We'll talk about that another day. He brought his posse out there. They like the neighborhood in Bethel Park. They said they'd come back to my hood again. So Reggie Lowe and buddies, you're welcome anytime as a guest of mine. Come on out. It was a pleasure meeting you. Then we had Rod Sulka come on there, a boxer. We'll talk about him later. I got a special segment for Smoking Jim to talk about boxing here tonight, so he's going to get another segment. Since I'm not an expert, just the amateur, we'll go there. And then we had a special guest. This guy impressed me so much, Jermaine Moncrief. This guy is unbelievable. Does a 4.3 40. Wow. He's going to be trying out for the NFL. He's only 6'1", 240. But I think he has 1% body fat. Yes. And he was a little bit nervous about being on our show, but once he started to talk Al Levine, the talking machine and crew, he started talking as much as anybody else on the show. He did a great job there, and I'm looking for a lot of future things for him. He's a positive guy, and we hope he does well in the NFL. Now what's on my mind is all the performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, and we're going to talk about that a little more in depth. But what's amazing to me is how they delay anybody getting in trouble. And when you talk about Goodell, that was one of my issues here with the NFL. We'll get into that. He got a lot of rights and a lot of benefits, but the players still can get away with a lot of these things. So we'll discuss that on the revisitation here, and I won't go in depth because, again, Chip and I are on the same wavelength here, and that's a little scary, folks. So anybody that wants to do a revisitation, I'm going to open it up to Big Mike since sometimes he questions what we even talk about. So, Big Mike, you got any questions for us on what we brought up?
What the hell are you guys talking about?
That's why you're here.
Okay, help me out on this one. I heard today, and I can talk about this because I heard it from somebody else on the radio. Goodell went to W&J, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
He was a bartender. That's how he worked his way through college.
Yes.
My type of guy. Now, the second thing I heard in the news today was when this Ray Jerry Lewis stuff came out.
Who's that?
It's number 52, his guy.
What's his name?
Ray Jerry's his first name, Lewis is his last name.
That's the first time I heard it.
Yeah, look it up. At any rate, what the deer extraction is all about is something like called IFI or some jazz like that, -1. And it's supposed to be...
IFGH.
-1. And it's supposed to make you, just like any other PED or roid or whatever, bigger and stronger. Now, somebody brought up the fact today, or the comment today about what if is the players, is the NFL getting sued by a bunch of guys with that have had concussions over the years, or the guys are being...
Yes.
Okay. What if, and this was a proposed thought, what if whomever the NFL is, they countersued because these guys have been using performance-enhancing drugs and muscle builders and all this jazz over the years that made them stronger and faster and made these collisions quicker and heavier and all that jazz. I mean, it's just tit for tat, kind of like.
Good call.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why all of these, all this litigation that the NFL is going through. I really think it's going to be much ado about nothing because the NFL has got the wherewithal to draw this out until the people that that are suing them will ultimately leave the face of the earth. And there's no reason for them to. And I mean, you think about Pandora's box being opened. I mean, if the players start making accusation about the owners, and the owners, I mean, like, is anybody not complicit in this? And I think the owners knew what was going on as far as performance-enhancing drugs going on. But you know what? If it was putting a better product for them, it was putting fannies in the seat, gave them $billion national television contracts, they've all benefited from it, as well as the players have. And now the players are paying the price for it, and the owners are still reaping the benefits. So.
Well, I hear you loud and clear. What you said kind of eloquently put my thought on a table. And I think when little Big Mike is at this end of the table and little Smoking Jim Fraser and little Chipper and little Al, I mean, 20, 30 years from now, it's a whole new ball game of guys here. The ball game's going to be the same. I don't see any way in hell that what?
I think it's changing.
You think?
Oh, yeah. It'll have to change.
Do you actually think that say 10 years?
They're all going to get slower. Just like when Lance Armstrong went, I don't know what that race is, but he was in there again.
The Tour de Farce.
He was like 40th because he didn't have any enhancing drugs. So everything will slow down. That'll change the sport. Guys won't be 350 going 4-4.
I don't think that the drug. I don't think that'll.
Here, let me just tell
guys
you.
Guys will be hitting 50 home runs instead of 70.
Yeah. These things will change, and part of it may get straightened out. Who knows? But you can do so much health-wise. There's so many things out there that are precursors for different amino acids in your body. These guys that are nutritionists and actually try to do the right thing, they can do a lot with natural substances and all that. You don't need the false testosterone and all that, the synthetic.
But you're saying you think any sport is going to be cleaned up. I don't.
Oh,
I'm hopeful. I'm an eternal
optimist.
optimist.
I'll tell you what, I mean, that's a very realistic point of view to take because, to be honest, money is the root of all the evils, of all the problems that are here. And as long as there's money to be made, there's going to be people that are going to find a way to get a bigger slice of the pie for themselves. That's just, it's human nature. I mean, we all would be very naive to think that somehow somebody's going to come in, in shining armor and clean up all professional sports because it just isn't going to happen.
Well, we even talked off the show that random drug testing should be random. Like people do in regular type of jobs, whether in a union or not. They shouldn't
call you up and say you're going to be randomly tested next Friday.
Here's how simple it is. We had a couple guests last night that work at the Post-Gazette. I got to give a shout out to Chief. Welcome to the show. Hazzy, thanks for showing up. These guys can tell you what a random drug test is. They give you a list of people there, and they got to take the drug test. If they don't go, they could get fired.
At the pre-production meeting, Chip hit a nail on the head with the how'd you say it? Anybody that's under contract to the steel, a ball team, a team should have X amount of drug tests per year, quarterly, whatever, and then be subjected to random. Because
but that wasn't in the CBA. They could have done that. That's part of it. When you have two parties negotiating, Goodell got a lot of rights. The players knew what they could do to stay healthy and recover. You need the HGH and this other stuff to heal you.
They would have never. They would have never come to a CBA if that would have been contingent upon them having random testing, especially for HGH, because they're still not doing it. And
So what you're saying is exactly what I think. Is the players are the root of the evil because they don't want it to be.
I think both parties are complicit here. I think both parties.
They have been
point my
complicit,
finger
but
at one nor the other and say, well, you guys are wrong and you guys are right. I mean,
No.
The kettle's black.
If the players, see, I watch sports reporters on Sunday, so I know you can shout and talk over people on a panel. But if the players wanted the sport to be cleaned up, they could do it because it'd be 100%, not 100%, but they could be unanimous in saying one or not. Drug test me every day. I mean, we're being ridiculous.
You know what? We could debate this all day long. We're not going to solve it tonight. And this will be for another session. We're not going to settle it tonight because, to me, everybody looks for an edge. And it could be legal, it could be illegal, but people look for an edge. Just think about in life what people are looking for, whether it's business, whether it's games, whether it's who knows what. Just think of it's human nature. So if you can tone some of that down, and it's the rules. If you have something that's so strict, then a few people don't even think about it. So that might clean it up. It's not going to happen. We're going to move on to one of our new segments, Fiction and Fact from Smokin' Jim's Almanac. I can't wait to hear what he's talking about tonight. Smokin' Jim Frazier, what do you got?
Well, I tell you what, I enjoy the conversations, man. This is a great, great show. I enjoy being part of it. I got to take you back to the fall of 1998. And being that we're getting ready to hit Black History Month, I'm going to take you to Florida to the Soul Bowl. 1998. I tell you what was my first Soul Bowl. Is a high school game between Northwestern High School and Jackson High School in Miami, Florida. It was played at the Orange Bowl game. The reason that I went down there is because the University of Pittsburgh was recruiting the #1 running back in the country at the time. Supposedly, he was the best running back in Florida since Emmitt Smith, named Torrey Cox. I get into the stadium. There's 50,000 fans there to see a high school game. And I tell you what, I was not impressed with Torrey Cox, and I almost left the game before the end of the first quarter. And right at the end of the first quarter, I see a receiver make a NFL catch, and I'm like, wow, this guy looks pretty good. So I stuck around, watched this receiver. He only had 5 receptions that day, but the pass routes that he ran, he caught with his hands. I went and talked to him after the game in the locker room. The coach told me that he had no scholarships, only one scholarship offer. That was Louisville, Division I offer. I called Pitt immediately. Pitt did not know who he was, but I told them if you're high on Torrey Cox, and Pitt had no Florida players at that time, and they wanted to open that market. I said, you really need to give this kid a scholarship because Torrey Cox won't get homesick if he got a buddy with him. So Pitt had one scholarship left, their 25th scholarship that year. They gave this kid the scholarship. The kid came in within a week of training camp. He wanted to quit the team. He did not have a father in his life. His male mentor was his midget league coach. He called his midget league coach, and his midget league coach told him, stick it out, suck it up. And the rest is history. He went on to win a Blitnikoff Award at Pitt, ended up being one of the all-time great wide receivers in college football history. Antonio Bryan from Northwestern High School in the Soul Bowl. I was able to see him first.
Good stuff, kiddo.
And folks, that's some more fiction and fact from Smokin' Jim's Almanac.
Exactly what you expected.
And Torrey Cox went from being the #1 running back in the country to being a part-time defensive back at Pitt and a special team player in the NFL. So I was correct on my evaluation. When
Again.
I
I thought he was bagging groceries.
Yeah, there you go.
But is he good at it? He might be #1 at it.
That's it.
Kurt Warner.
And now we go to
Kurt
Chips.
Warner. Bag groceries.
That's true.
Now we're going to Chips trivia time here.
Well, thank you, Alan. Just a few bits of useless trivia I stumbled across today because, supposedly there's a big game being played this weekend. I don't know. Maybe it's in New Orleans or something. I don't know. I mean, am I going to watch it? Might watch the commercials. But, the Super Bowl is all going to be played this weekend. And some interesting facts about the Super Bowl is that there are 4 NFL teams that have never made the Super Bowl. And let us, we can sit there, and I know some people will sit there and rack their brains, but just to make a long story short.
Make it easy.
Cleveland, I know, is one.
The Cleveland Browns would be #1. The Detroit Lions would be #2.
Wow, that's awesome.
Jacksonville Jaguars #3, and the Houston Texans #4.
Wow.
We thought the Texans were on their way there this year, but not so much. Who is the only player to earn MVP for the Super Bowl from the losing team?
Oh, that was the guy from Dallas when the Steelers beat him, and his name is...
No, it wasn't when the Steelers beat him.
Chuck Howley.
Chuck Howley, who it was, and it was from when the Cowboys lost to the Baltimore Colts. Let's not forget the Baltimore Colts played in 2 Super Bowls, and they were 1-1 before Mr. Irsay decided to scoot them off into Indianapolis in the dark of the night.
Yeah.
The teams that have played in the most Super Bowls, the Steelers and the Cowboys. Here's the next one. Super Bowl 46 was a rematch of Super Bowl 42. Okay. Can you name the other Super Bowl rematches? There are 4 other sets of teams.
Of course, Pittsburgh and Dallas.
Pittsburgh and Dallas have played 3 times in the Super Bowl. The 49ers have played the Bengals twice in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
The Dolphins have played the Redskins twice.
Wow.
And they were 1-1 with them. The first year that the Dolphins beat the Redskins was the perfect season, with Larry Zonka and Jim Kick in the backfield, Mercury Morris, Paul Warfield, Bob Greasy.
Nick Bonacani.
There was that. And then the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, they had to.
The only team to make it to 4 consecutive Super Bowls, and they got drubbed by Dallas back-to-back. But those are some interesting facts about this
Thanks, Chip.
America's pastime coming up this weekend.
I like the useless trivia.
No,
That
it's not
helps.
useless. It's good stuff. Good
It's
stuff.
not useless to me, Big Mike.
No, that's what I said. It's not useless at all. It's good
Well,
stuff, man.
now I'm going to go to a segment. We already talked NFL a little, but we need to talk about the Super Bowl a little bit more. Because I'm going on Smoking Jim's bandwagon with San Francisco. Even though I hate to say they're going to win 6, but I can't root for Baltimore. I just can't. I don't have it in my Steeler DNA, and the Kool-Aid, I won't be able to drink Steeler Kool-Aid. So what do you think there, Chip?
Well, I have thought about this long and hard, and then I got up and pulled my pants back up.
Family show.
This is one thing that I'm going to do.
Cut.
This is one thing I'm going to do this weekend is I'm going to watch the Super Bowl. I'm not really going to be rooting for or against anybody. I mean,
I heard you might be rooting for a tie.
if there was
I heard that.
If there was any kind of cosmic justice, that's what would happen.
I heard that was what you said earlier.
That's not going to happen. But I'm just getting a little sick of Ray Lewis and him walking on water, and he's not going to part the Red Sea. But he has made some great accomplishments in his life, and he's also done some things that he's not, has no reason to be proud of either. I really don't like Jim Harbaugh. I think he's just a jerk. I mean, he may be a great football coach. I mean, look what he did with the Stanford University. He turned them. Yeah. I mean, they've been to 3 straight BCS bowls with the team that he stockpiled. Okay, brought Stanford, put him back on the map again. I mean, he's done an amazing job with San Francisco. I mean, Mike Singletary had basically the same squad, and he lost the team. But for whatever reason, they bought into Harbaugh's. And, you can't argue with the success the guy's had. I mean, he was 2 NFC championships games his first 2 years. He's at the big game this year.
Exactly.
Whatever's going to be.
Jim, you got anything else to say after Chip gave you all that San Francisco info?
Well, yeah, I hope you guys cheer. I'm a professional gambler, so I put my money down last night on
how many points
San Francisco, just 4. But they got to win by 5, 4.5.
Okay.
But with all this Ray Lewis stuff, they could be pulling it off the board, but I'm already in. They got to pay me.
Good.
But I just look at it this way, and I'm going to donate part of my winnings to Ray Lewis's charity of choice because I feel bad. Ray Lewis, in my opinion, is the greatest football player of all time. But it's matchups is what makes the game. San Francisco got a young, fast team. That pistol is going to give you a lot of trouble. You got that read option. And I tell you what, it's not the option like they run in college where you can kill the quarterback. The quarterback's back in the shotgun, and he's just reading those guys, man. And I remember years ago, Chuck Noll used to kill Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was the most vicious football player of all time, and Chuck Noll used to trap him all the time, and he would fall for that trap, and he'd be so frustrated after the game. He says, I'm a veteran, I'm a pro, and I keep falling for this trap. And it's the same way with the read option. Terrell Suggs, all those guys, man, it's going to be a fast track in New Orleans. I think in the second half, the old legs is just going to be run out of the building. Wow. And, I look for San Francisco to get number 6. And Pittsburgh Steelers, don't fear because San Francisco won't get number 7 because the genius is now in Arizona, Bruce Arians, and he's going to rip the NFL apart.
I'll tell you what, I wish nothing but the best of luck to Mr. Arians. But I'm telling you right now, he's really got to pull a magic act to pull something out of Arizona, because there isn't a quarterback in the draft, and there isn't anyone anywhere near Phoenix that they're going to find anytime
I beg
soon.
to differ. Geno Smith. Geno Smith got an arm and could play. He played half the season there and won, and it wasn't all his fault.
And he put
that
West
they lost.
Virginia right on his back last year and marched them right into the top.
Yeah.
What? They weren't even in the top 25.
Yeah, but wait a
Well,
second. There was a defensive problem there. They couldn't stop anyone.
Well, a couple of things to look at Arizona. Number one, they got an outstanding defense, very underrated defense. That defense is as good as any defense in football. Larry Fitzgerald's great wide receiver, still in his prime. And believe me, Bruce Arians is the only coach that took Cleveland since they've come back to the playoffs, and he did that with Tim Couch. So he'll find a way to get him a quarterback. And I tell you what, he's just going to do some things that you've never seen in the National Football League since the other genius, Bill Walsh, retired.
Oh my goodness! Hey, Big Mike, what do you? After following that, who do you like in the Super Bowl? We didn't ask you yet.
Stone Cold Lock, if anybody's interested.
What's that mean?
I guarantee that Baltimore is going to walk away with it, because the 49ers quarterback Copernicus was once a very high draft pick by the Chicago Cubs. Consequently, he has 106 years to go before he gets an NFL championship. Bet on the Ravens.
Well, yeah, that's probably one of the smartest things that Colin Kaepernick has done, was not signing with the Chicago Cubs, because look how much he's been a professional for 2 years, and he's going to be a champion. And if you play for the Cubs, it might be year 22 something before the Cubs ever win a championship.
Well, maybe they'll clean up
They'll
baseball.
they'll make it an even couple decades or centuries. I mean, excuse me.
I think we covered the NFL and some sports there. What about these Penguins here? Have you guys followed the Penguins at all?
Big time, big time. By the
What
way,
do you think about the Penguins? Big Mike's ready.
Can you get a score?
Big Mike.
They're playing right now, aren't they?
Well, here, I wanted to tell you, I
Islanders got
talked
scored.
the biggest fan in New Jersey now, my sister Hope. So shout out to
Well,
Hope. She
Hope.
can't watch it live, so
Hope
she'll
and
get
Cape
it on
May?
tape.
Hope and Cape May?
She's in North Wildwood. She visits Cape May, but she's not living in Cape May.
Awesome, Hope. I hope to visit. Hope, too, that is.
Thank you. Well,
Okay.
she said she texted me, so there mustn't be any score in the game, or she forgot.
Oh, it's the Islanders, right?
Right, so there's probably no score at all
Well,
at this point in
to
time.
speak to the Penguins, and just about what I've been seeing around the NHL in general, the season's now probably, 9, maybe 10 days old. And, I'm really happy to see that hockey's back, and, and it's a sprint to the finish. It's a 48-game season. And, you're seeing some fairly sloppy play from all of the teams. It shows that they didn't have a training camp, and they haven't been playing for a couple of months. This Penguins came out the gate pretty good. I mean, they ended last year on a really horrible note, and kind of embarrassed themselves in that playoff series against the Flyers. And they exited out, and they started out the season with a good, strong win against Philadelphia, and they went up and they beat the Rangers in New York. And then the next 2 games they played, they really played poorly. They got beat soundly by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they took a 2-0 lead Friday night against the Winnipeg Jets, and gave up 4 unanswered goals. And what you were seeing with the Penguins is a lot of sloppy play. Guys not putting forth the effort, not finishing their checks and anything. Sunday afternoon's game against the Ottawa Senators, the Penguins couldn't seem to get anything going offensively, but finally their defense showed up, and there was some excellent defensive play made. Derek Englund made a stop right towards the end of overtime. Does he not make that stop? That game's over, and the Penguins don't win. But we need to see is a little bit more consistency and a little bit more focus on the defensive end of the puck. The goals are going to come, but these guys, the Penguin teams in the past have done this. They pass the puck too many times. Right. And I'm a believer in hockey. Throw the puck at the net, crash the net, throw the puck at the net. Things will happen, and everybody's trying to make that highlight reel play. And sure, we got the talent to do it, but it doesn't always work out that way. And there's a lot. I would say maybe in about 5 or 6 weeks, we're really going to have a kind of idea of who the haves and have-nots are in the NHL, and we're going to see where the Penguins stack up, because there's a lot expected out of them this year, and anything less than a Stanley Cup, they're going to be calling for Bilesmith's head.
Well, it's true. They only last about 4 years as coaches in the NHL, so that could happen. But they do have to play with that grit, as they call it. And what amazes me in hockey is sometimes they just say they didn't put the effort in the game. And that amazes me because you're a professional, and each game you should be playing to the utmost of your ability. And it's only 48 games this year. I know it's tough to do those back-to-backs, but some of their shifts are only 20 seconds. So it makes you wonder. So if they do play like they just played on Sunday, I think we'll hear some good news. Maybe I'll get that text there. I'm looking for the score.
I want to ask you guys what the most exciting thing of the hockey game in Ottawa, what was the most exciting thing that you saw in that hockey game? If you watched the game from start to finish.
Derek England at the end of overtime, about 45 seconds left.
Wrong.
He stopped a breakaway that would have ended the game.
Al?
I like Malkin closing it out on the shootout. Was my personal.
Smoking?
I missed it.
You did. Now, the most amazing thing about that was the coach of the Ottawa Senators. Guy sitting right behind him at the glass looked just like him. The coach, I'm telling you, it was awesome.
I did see that.
The coach of the Senators had bristly, thin hair, kind of like mine, and a big walrus mustache. And thick glasses, and there was a guy sitting right behind him on the glass. I'm telling you,
we're talking about on the ice.
We're talking about
hockey, not acting, not your look. It always comes back to your hair, and you're not cutting it till they
Everybody
clean
got
out
a twin in
sports.
the world. Everybody got a twin somewhere in the world.
Right.
That's awesome.
And he was also a Penguin player.
Lord help us if I ever find mine.
That'll be a show for another day there. We'll have to talk about that another
Big Mike
day.
and a little chipper and a little smoking.
But what else we had going on last night? We had a big week in local college basketball this week. The University of Pittsburgh had two very big games. They tripped and fell last night against Louisville, and this is a team that not more than 2 weeks ago was ranked #1 in the nation, and they lost 3 games in a row, and they were a team that was ready to be had. And they got Louisville last night. You got Syracuse playing on Saturday at noon, and I'm telling you, these 2 games are going to give you a real good measuring stick of where the Pitt basketball team is, because they were 17-4 going into last night's game. They're not even thought about in the top 25 teams, and it's because of all these mom and pop universities they played earlier in this season. Instead of playing any real talent, they beefed up their win record by beating a bunch of have-nots. And, any team that they've played that's really, I would consider a top 25 team, they've lost to. Mm-hmm. Now, last night, they lost 64-61 to Louisville, okay? Now, technically, Louisville's a better team. They were ranked #1 not even 2 weeks ago. And Pitt, by all rights, should have beat them. I mean, they lost 64-61. Once again, at the foul line, the Pitt Panthers failed. They sunk 3 free throws out of 12 attempts. And I mean, that is absolutely horrible. If they just would have sunk half of them, okay, we're looking at a tie game. We're going into overtime, okay? If they hit one more, if they hit 7 out of 12, they win the game. This is something that happens to Pitt over and over and over again. And I think when Syracuse gets here this weekend, as much as I would love to see Pitt beat them, I'm thinking they're getting run out of the gym.
Even Shaq was tweeting that Pitt's poor on a free throw line.
No, how could Shaq do that? I know that's not real. That's a little humor from Smoking Jim. I don't think Shaq can tweet. Not himself, anyhow, especially about fouls.
Hey, if he can get in those little cars on the commercials, man, he can tweet.
Follow the money. Maybe he tweets. Maybe they pay him there. But Pitt has that same disease where they miss those fouls.
I know Shady McCoy can tweet.
Well, it's funny how you bring that up. So there's another Pitt player that they can't stay away from the tweet. He gave one of the better apologies. That he apologized
After he
for
said
that.
Somebody hacked into
right,
his
but
account.
then he denied that anybody hacked in there. He had to come clean there with all of that stuff. So maybe he shouldn't tweet anymore.
Yeah, maybe Dante Teo should.
Yeah.
I understand that the guy that performed the hoax, or that was behind the hoax, the guy that was pretending he was a girl on the phone, was supposed to be interviewed, was it today, by Dr. Phil? And I'm sure that probably got about as high as ratings as Manti Te'o's did when he, got interviewed by Katie Couric. But what a mess that was.
Wow.
Here's a kid that, just kind of like brings to the surface everything that's like wrong with what they're teaching kids in college sports these days. Because he sits here with Katie Couric and he goes, "Put yourself in my shoes. What would you have done?" Well, you know what? Obviously not what you did, but I mean, to think that, oh, wow, this was never, for whatever reason, you played the card to try to get attention, maybe hopefully get you some Heisman votes or whatever. But you know what? I think that he had more involvement with this than he's willing to admit, and it just questions his integrity.
Well, Chip, it almost propelled him to the Heisman there. Think about it. Everybody felt so bad for him. What a leader.
Well,
he was crying. Another guy crying. I won't mention the other guy.
You know what? But here's the thing. If he would have, if he would have done that, they still probably wouldn't have lost the Heisman. Reggie Bush got paid, accepted payments and lost. But OJ murdered somebody and he didn't lose his Heisman.
Well, those are good points, but.
So if it happens after you win the award, I guess it's not as bad.
Well, that's what they teach in society, like you're saying. So that goes back to my edge.
All I'm hoping is he gets a lot of bad press and he slides right into number 17. I would love to see him in black and gold.
I'm with you, Smoking Jim, but I was watching ESPN the other day and they were talking, where do you think he'll slip to in the draft? They said 7.
Okay. Here's the only, Jim, and I trust your ability to evaluate talent.
Thank you,
sir. You're absolutely an expert, and I defer to you on that. But here's the problem I have with Manti Te'o being an impact linebacker. The few minutes that I happened to glance at the TV set when the national championship game was being played, I saw Alabama offensive linemen and running backs running over a prone Manti Te'o. He spent more time on the ground than he did tackling people, and he got steamrolled a couple of times, and I hope he brings a little bit more to the table when he starts playing.
You got to put yourself in his shoes. He was having a mental dilemma that he knew from early December that he had to tell on himself. So his head was not in the game. He didn't wrap his arms on one tackle. You watched the game. I saw the whole game. It was sickening there. So he was distracted because of that fake girlfriend that he had. And he knew what he promoted. Look at everybody in the locker room that's coming out. They said, yeah, we knew she wasn't real. He was just promoting. He's all full of himself.
Really? They said that?
Guys in his locker room. One guy ratted him out right away. That's why he had to come out on TV with all this stuff.
And he was Notre Dame, right?
Pardon me?
Did he play for Notre Dame?
Yes,
I don't recall, sir.
Yeah, yes, he did.
Oh, come on. All right, let's go. Let's turn the clock back to another Notre Dame game. Notre Dame guy that tried to promote himself for the Heisman.
Joe Theismann.
There you go.
Joe Theismann. It rhymes with Heisman, so he became, he does have nice hair.
Now I got to go.
I respect that. Now we got to watch for the. Now I
got to go. My main man, Joe Theismann. I tell you what, one of my all-time favorite players. What a great college player. Don't forget, he was the quarterback before Bishop Cannon's Tommy Clemens come in there and was a great quarterback at Notre Dame. But not only did he change his name from Joe Theismann to Joe Theismann to rhyme with the Heisman, but he's the only player to be interviewed at the Heisman Award ceremonies when he became runner-up, and he was so mad when Jim Plunkett won that he said the only reason that Jim Plunkett got the Heisman over him is because they felt sorry for him because both of his parents were blind. My man, Joe Theismann, he's never been one that was lost for words.
Our most endearing snapshot of Joe Theismann was with the bottom half of his leg flapping in the wind after LT
that was gruesome,
did a dance on him.
Well, here on something a little less violent, let's go to boxing here. We had some boxers last night. We were talking boxing, Smoking Jim. One of your favorites that you've told me about, Rod Salka. I was impressed by the young man. He does his own promotions for his fights, and it was just a great performance by him, and he has a championship bout where if he wins, he gets into like top 15. You have to explain some of these deals out there on how that works, where that gets him, where he can get a title fight for something like the WBA.
Well, Lightning Rod Salka just texted me, just as Jermaine did 345 pounds at the gym, 18 reps. So Sounds like we got an NFL
Jermaine,
guy.
I tell you what, Jermaine is
You know
one of
what?
the most incredible physical specimens that I've seen. This young man is put together, 6'1", 240 pounds, and he's chiseled.
And he's a very humble guy. But Lightning Rod Soccer is one of the most intriguing local fighters around here, and there's some good ones. He is right now getting ready to fight for a title Saturday night in Elizabeth, PA, to again be the only athlete to ever come out of Elizabeth High School. Rod Soccer is, if he wins this title Saturday, and I believe he will break the top 15 in the world. He would be recognized by all the major sanctioning bodies as one of the top 15 lightweight boxers on the planet. And you have to be in the top 15 in order for you to get a world title shot. So that'll put him right in the money. I tell you what, if you love, they call him Lightning Rod because he is fast. If you like boxers like Sugar Ray Leonard, Camacho, well, he's a little different from Spatty, although Spatty is a great defensive fighter. But he's one of those fast fighters. Like, he kind of reminds me of the late Macho Camacho. Wow. That type of fighter. Fast hands, quick hands, can outbox you, very tough. And it's probably him calling down on the phone. But, tell
him to watch the show live, and he could just call in. 412-831-3304.
And one last thing about Rod Soccer, a lot of people don't realize, and we didn't bring it out on the show last night. Does anybody know who his trainer is?
No.
His trainer is none other than former two-time world heavyweight champion Michael Moore.
The Menneson Mauler.
Right. Menneson Mauler. And I think you got a chance to meet Michael.
I met him and his son.
Fight.
I met his son. I forget his name now. A nice young child. I think he's 8 years old. He picked every winner, folks.
Wow.
He beat me by one.
Wow.
His son. So Michael Moore's son, I know he's doing well in school because he sure can handicap the boxing matches.
Oh, that was my sister that called.
Whoa, see, nobody's calling me. Wait a second.
But I'll tell you what, Lightning Rod was on the show last night, and I'm thoroughly impressed with him. He started his own production company, and he's producing the fight, this weekend. So, it'd be nice to get some, locals out there rooting on somebody. It'd be nice to have another champion in the City of Champions. I think he's going to do it, and it's somebody to pay attention to in the boxing game.
And he said he does most of his promotions on his own. We tried to get the website. He did say it. So when we put the show up, I didn't get it written down. He said he doesn't even write it down, that he makes money on each of these fights. So Lightning Rod, we're trying to help you make some more money. Get out there and watch them. They have a great card out there. It's Saturday night, and
the sports arena is located in Elizabeth. It's right off of Route 48, and if you're familiar with that area, right now where Rock Run Road runs into Route 48, there's a sports complex on the hill up behind the gas stations. That's where the fight's going to be on Saturday night. So if you're looking for something to do, good place to spend your evening.
There you go. So good luck to you, Rod. Hope to see you next week after you're a champion.
Hope I can find it.
Well, good luck. You got GPS, don't you?
Call me.
I got Chip's number. That's all I need.
All I need to know is where are you and where are you trying to get to.
There you go.
I'll get you there.
Chip can do it in the whole
I ain't calling Reggie Lowe and his crew.
Hey, and now a subject we usually bring up since early spring training's coming up in a couple weeks. What about the Pirates here? What's your thoughts there, Chip?
Well, my thoughts about the Pirates, I'm really looking forward to this season. The Pirates have made some moves. It looked like they've taken steps to try to bolster their starting pitching staff. I still think there's a lot of questions about the pitching staff. Will Francisco Liriano be able to play this year? He broke his humerus in his right arm, his non-pitching arm. And they've come to agreement with him, but they haven't signed any contracts because he's got to pass a physical, and the contract's contingent upon him being able to play. If he can't play, he's getting significantly less money. I like the fact that they brought back Jeff Karstens, and the Pirates really didn't want to, have Karstens on the team this year at $4.5 million.
Right.
Because Jeff Karstens can be a serviceable starter, but he spent a lot of time on the injured list over the last couple of years. So they got him at a more friendly,
reasonable
amount. But what they did was they gave him $2.5 million, and they gave him an incentive-laden contract. So if he is able to pitch and hit certain statistics, he can put more money in his pocket. Also excited about the fact that Charlie Morton's progressing well from his Tommy John surgery. They're probably not looking to see him till the middle of the season, probably July. May not see him till August. I really hope that they don't rush him back so that when they get him back, so that leaves some options. You got A.J. Burnett and Wandy Rodriguez. I think those are the two locks. I think every other position in the starting rotation is up in the air. I know the Pirates love James McDonald. Let me tell you something. Until about June 30th last year, I love James McDonald.
Well, I like him. Why don't we just delay his season till my birthday's June 30th? That'll be a birthday present to me. Let him start then. And then he can finish the season out strong.
But we need to find out, is James McDonald the real deal? Can he be a major league pitcher? We know what he can do. I mean, he's capable. Now, you've got to put it together. And I think the Pirates are moving in the right direction there. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting season, and everybody's going to be moaning and complaining because the Pirates are making money. Well, you know what? That's what professional sports teams do. They make money.
Right.
I mean, I don't fault the Pirates management for doing that. I mean, I wouldn't be part owner of any business that lost money. But, other people have passions. I mean, I'm a passionate Pirate fan. I mean, these last 20 years have been painful. I'm going to tell you what, 2010 was one of the worst years I've ever had as a Pirate fan. I saw some really horrible baseball games at PNC Park, but I was still there supporting my team because I love the Pirates. They've been around forever, and I hope they stay around forever.
Well, they're going to stay around. And we know you're a fan. I've been a Pirate fan, and I like they're bringing Jay Bell on board as the hitting coach. Now, I never remember him as anything but a clutch hitter at times, but he was more a defensive player. So maybe he can help Clint Hurdle out, who is the hitting coach.
Well, actually, what he did, I believe he was Arizona's hitting coach, the Diamondbacks, and he performed very, very well at increasing
maybe he's
their
a better
team
teacher than a hitter.
You never know. But I like the tie to the Pirate teams of the 90s. But I mean, everybody knew that we needed to do something about that hitting coach because what we were doing last year wasn't working, okay? And it was obvious because the problems were there. I mean, and ultimately, yes, it falls to the players. They're the ones that have to go out there and they've got to put the work in. But, I mean, coaches can be very influential and help players along. And, you can't just sit there and constantly watch videotape all day long. You got to work with your players. You got to get them to buy into your system, and you've got to be able to identify, their strengths and their weaknesses, and hopefully we'll see.
Well, I agree. I agree with you. Let's be hopeful there.
A core group of guys that can be good producers. I mean, Garrett Jones had a nice year last year. Pedro Alvarez finally got his head screwed on straight.
Right.
Andrew McCutchen, he's going to vie for the batting title again this year. Neil Walker is a legitimate 300 hitter. He stays healthy all year. I mean, to be honest with you, when the Pirates really went into the crapper last year, right after Walker hurt his back, and then we're bringing up this Brock Holt and whoever else.
Right.
But I mean, he was a big difference. It was a big difference.
On that happy note, I'll drink some Pirate Kool-Aid, and we're going to go to our closing remarks because sometimes we talk after the show for about 10, 15 minutes or so. So I wanted to know, Big Mike, you got any closing remarks for us? And your fans out there?
Actually, I do. Again,
You want to tell us?
I'm going to share this with you. Lance Armstrong, who was he and his team were sponsored by the United States Postal Service. Most of, if not 100% of his PEDs, steroids, and drugs, etc., were delivered by Federal Express.
Is that why the postal rate went up too?
It has nothing to do with Federal Express.
It just went up 1 cent.
The postal.
They gave the donation.
Because of Lance.
Right.
Yeah.
But they sponsored him.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Postal rates went up because of the Lance Armstrong.
But all his drugs were delivered by FedEx. I mean, go figure. At least he could have FedEx.
It was cheaper. He was buying more.
Oh.
All right, Smoking Jim, we got to move on from that. What's your closing remarks here?
What do you expect from me?
Nothing. I mean, I got it. Oops.
Just real quick, my wish list for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to get Manti Te'o. He did play poorly in the national championship game. I guess I didn't see that particular game. But this is a kid that is 6'2", 255 pounds, and you can't teach that. His father was his high school football coach. His uncle was his assistant high school football coach. So he comes from a football family. One thing that I know about Dick LeBeau and Keith Butler, the linebacker coach, they can coach guys up. And when you're playing in the 3-4 defense like the Steelers play, you're covered up a lot. He can just go make plays. He's coachable. I think that Troy Polamalu would be a great influence on this young man. And I tell you what, this is a kid that will work as hard as he needs to work to get better in any deficiencies that he has. Going into his senior year, he could have been a first-round draft pick as a junior. His parents wanted him to come out. After his junior year, they were tired of living in those grass huts. But he decided to come back for a senior year because he wanted to work on his pass defense, and he ended up leading the team and one of the top interceptors in the nation with 7 interceptions. He had 0 going into his senior year. That would be my pick if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, is Manti Te'o.
Thanks for your insights there, Smoking Jim. All right, Chip, what do you got here?
Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame. You know, Big Mike Butera was talking about 3 gentlemen that'll be up for the Baseball Hall of Fame this summer. And, you know, how Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux and Frank Thomas. And Frank Thomas seems to think he's one of 3 people that are going to get in on the first ballot. I believe there's only been 1 pitcher that was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot, and that was Tom Seaver. I believe Greg Maddux should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Tom Glavine definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's going to go next year. I think Maddux will go, and Frank Thomas, you got a ways to go, pal. We'll see you in about a decade, and you know, we'll see what happens. Also this weekend, the NFL Hall of Fame is going to announce the candidates to be enshrined in Canton, and I foresee Steeler Nation being in Canton this August, welcoming Jerome Bettis. I feel that this is a very deserving candidate. If you look at the running backs in the Hall of Fame that are ahead of him on the all-time rushing yards list, you know, he's every bit as good as any of them. I believe he should go. It's a shame that Chris Carter probably once again won't get elected into the Hall of Fame. And I think Tim Brown just about had everybody erase his name off the ballots after the foolishness he came up with last week, talking about a game that was played 10 years ago. Like, people can't even remember what happened 10 minutes ago. But, you know, there's going to be a new class of electors. And the problem with the Hall of Fame and who gets in, you leave this up to sports writers. And, you know, the sports writers have personal grudges against people, and that determines whether or not somebody's going to get in. Got to be a better way of doing it.
Hey, thanks, Chip. I appreciate it. Late breaking news from the biggest fan from New Jersey. First, she said hi to all, and she said she didn't see your hair, Big Mike, so she can't talk about it. But she said 0-0 after 1 period. She's 400 miles away, and she wishes she could be here. So
Awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks, Hope. We're keeping Hope alive on the show. And I want to thank Aaron Ward, Devin Shea, Chris the cameraman. We put him through the ringer all the time. I'm constantly putting up stuff. No, not now, Chris. But I appreciate all of that work. It's always great. They add a lot to this show, and without them, we can't produce it and talk to you out here on there. And this is Al Levine, the Talking Machine, signing off. We got Chip the Prophet Hayner, who's back prophesizing. Smoking Jim Frazier with his insights and wishes here for the Steelers. Big Mike Butera, he's all over the place, but he did have some great sports talk here tonight. Yeah, well, I know you can't remember. We got to get you off the PEDs, and we're working on that. What do you got?
Super Bowl prediction.
Yes.
Wardrobe malfunction, halftime show.
There you go. Great point at the end there. See it. Watch us next week. Thanks for watching the show.